Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Federation's Most Wanted, a Blake 7 podcast. I'm the Preacher 711, and normally I'm out there seeking, locating, and interviewing Blake 7 fans from across the community. But once again, I'm doing something a little bit different this week. I was having a back and forth with one of the fans of our Blake 7 games that we put out there currently via Roblox, and they were asking me a lot of questions about the process, the making, but importantly, where we're going in the future. And it was their suggestion that once we'd had this back and forth, she said maybe you should talk about this on your podcast so that other people are aware. And I thought that that's not a bad idea. So huge thanks out there to Bartholomew B7. She's been a supporter and a player of our games for untold years now, and has been a huge help in feedback to when we've got issues and play testing and stuff like that. Because quite often when you develop something in your little closed little development environment, things can seem fine, things can be great, but once you put them out into the real world, little problems can creep in and things you didn't notice when you tested it yourself. So hugely grateful to her and for everybody like her who plays the games and reaches out and lets me know when there are issues and problems. So please do continue to do that. But one of the things she was asking me about was, what's the roadmap? What's going on with the games? What are the current games? There was a question around, that she's seen games appear and disappear quite regularly that haven't sort of lasted. Why does that happen? What's that all about? So I thought I'd just do a little podcasty chit chat around where we are, where we're going, what my little plans are, and we'll see where we go from there. So I suppose the first thing to talk about is our main game we have out there on Roblox at the moment is something called Blake 7 Rebellion. It's a mission-based single-player game where you can play as any member of the Liberator crew from season 1 and 2, so A and B, currently. Each of those characters has some different attributes. Villa, for example, can pick locks. Avon can access computer terminals. Blake's a bit hardier but a bit slower. Gan can hit people with great force. Callie can use like a psychic attack and healing as well. And you basically play through episodes, missions based on episodes of the show, starting with Cygnus Alpha. We do most episodes. There's been a couple that have been harder to do or not as great fun to do, so they're not in there. But we've pretty much done all the way up to trial now, and we've taken a little bit of a pause there. Mainly due to it's a lot of effort to build these. Each one takes quite a while to do. Sometimes they can be quite tough. Sometimes they don't work out quite as well as I hoped. I was the one that's currently sort of suspended in development is we were working on one for Hostage, and it's okay, but it just amounts to running around shooting crimos and dodging rocks, which could be good fun. I don't know, but someone might enjoy that. But at the moment, we've taken a little bit of a pause, and in all honesty, we've taken a bit of a pause because the number of sort of people playing up to a certain mission point sort of drastically fell off. And it's like I say, it's a lot of time and effort when I was being asked for other things as well. So we're in a fortunate enough position that lots of people have played the games over the years and seemingly quite enjoy the games. The numbers are great on the whole. And so I had a lot of asks to return to doing multiplayer games where people could play together with their friends, which is something we used to do long ago. But the pull then was towards doing single player games. So it's always this juggle between what you're being asked for, what people want, and what you want to creatively make yourself as well. I think one of the hardest things is you have an idea yourself for what would be a great Blake 7 game you would want to play. And you make it and you put it out there, and then you realise that just because you wanted it doesn't mean anybody else would enjoy it even. So what we tend to do is we try and do a balance these days between what we like, what we think other people would like, and then we try and gauge the reaction to it. So again, one of the questions Bartholomew was asking me was about the fact that recently we put up a game called Battle Stations, which was just a space-based multiplayer fly around the Blake 7 universe, unlocking different ships. So starting out with a little Space Master shuttle, unlocking things like Federation pursuit ships, right up to the Liberator at the top end. And even thanks to the guys over at the Vindictus novel, they let me use the ship Vindictus out of their books as well, even as like the apex of everything. But it was one of these games where, in my mind, it would be fun, exciting, fast-paced, and great. And when you got to playing it, it was just a little bit aimless, I suppose. It was quite hard to make it open world and fun. So for now, until I can come up with a better idea, it's gone a bit on the back burner. And also just the limitations of what I can actually make using the tools at hand. Because while Roblox is a spectacular platform for building and sharing, I've been through dozens of platforms over the decades, and they can't always help you achieve what you want to achieve. They're not always great for everybody being able to access them free and outreach. And the great thing about Roblox is, right, everybody, mobile phones of every type, PCs, tablets, all that jazz, can all get into it. But it does have a bit of a limitation around, it's all built with this concept of a person running around. So making spaceships instead of people was a bit of a challenge, making the platform work with that. I did achieve it, but it's not perfect. It's not what I wanted. So for now, Blake Seven Battle Stations is gone back on the shelf, and instead I responded to I don't know what's caused this, and it was really flattering and really nice. But I got a string of DMs from people saying about the last big multiplayer game we had was something called Galactic War, which was back to the concept I've always loved of playing as the Federation, right? Playing as a Federation trooper, going off and doing troopery missions and all that lot. And we had this game, and it got off to a decent launch about a year ago, but at the time I was having problems with that, getting the mission structure to work in a multiplayer universe. It's easy to do missions when it's a single person playing it, because a single person can trigger an event, resolve an event, do all that. It's a bit harder when you're potentially opening it up to dozens of people to make that work well. But so I'd withdrawn it. But I got this string of DMs asking me to put it back, to bring it back. So having learned a bit more about how I can make these things function better over the last year, I learned a lot during Rebellion. Even though that's a single player, I learned a lot doing that about what was possible. So we've had a bit of a relaunch, rebirth, redesign of Galactic War. I think it's a lot better for it. There's a lot more fun to it, and I've tried to do a mix of missions that are either implied stuff like the massacre on Zercaster, for example, as well as throw in some characters. There's a mission in there with Baben aboard his ship, the Frenzy, that's mentioned in the Big Finish expanded stuff. And then I was desperate to get the war between the presidents from the Blake 7 Big Finish arc through from Crossfire into Restoration, the battle between Servalan and the former president. I really wanted to get that in there and have sort of the 13th Legion knocking around and make them look a bit grimier and a bit grubbier, and do some missions against them. So they've made it in there as well. And there's a nice little plot arc in there. So that's the second of our games that's out there. The third one is the resurrection of another old game called The Descent, which again was a multiplayer game. It was a multiplayer, like a survival horror type game that was set around an abandoned, creepy Federation research facility, which I always like the idea of, abandoned facility. It goes back to sort of, John Carpenter's The Thing, being out in the Antarctic in an outpost and stuff like that. I like the idea of those sort of creepy dark corridors and torches. And it's where you can play as either the Federation or the Rebels, both rushing to this facility to get to its lowest levels to find out what on earth is going on. And equally, we'd retired that one because, again, it was just not being played. It got a massive launch, and for the first 6 months, lots of players. But it just fallen off the light, really. And keeping some of these things maintained when they're older is quite a lot of effort, because what will happen is Roblox will update its platform, update the way things function, and you then have to go back potentially and rejig a lot of the scripts and the code you've written to account for that. And because our games, unlike a lot of Roblox games where it's just people playing against people, our games tend to have a lot of AI in them. They tend to have a lot of computer-controlled enemies running around for you to fight, rather than just other humans. And that's something we built ourselves. We're quite proud of. We built the part that controls these things running around. But the only problem is every time Roblox makes a little change to some of these systems, they break and they stop working, and they stop doing insane things like jumping around like kangaroos and levitating in the air, which can be quite funny. So it's always quite tough, especially like with the Descent, where it's nearly 2 years old. There's a lot of things break. So it did get put in the bin, but again, there was a lot of ask to bring it back. So I did bring that one back shortly before the Galactic War one. And again, it got a lot of interest at first. It's kind of tailed off again on that one compared to Galactic War. So I will keep my eye on it, because like I say, he's the heaviest in terms of maintenance as well. And the other question Bartholomew was asking was, what's the future? What are my plans going forward? So at the moment, Rebellion will stay. Rebellion, the mission-based one, going through episodes of the show, that will continue. I will add to it. There will be more missions. It's just a time thing at the moment. And since sort of almost the players haven't caught up to where I've got to in terms of progress, I've got plenty of time. So that will continue to grow. If you picked up recently the 2023 Cold Edge Blake 7 annual, you will find in there a code to access a secret room on the Liberator that will give you access to a secret bonus character as well that you can use across all the missions. So have fun with that if you do. So that's going to stay. So don't worry, Rebellion's going to stay. And now we've cracked a lot of the problems on Galactic War, and it's in a much better place than it was before. For the foreseeable future, that's going to stay as well, because the weekly numbers on that have been great. Even I've been on there from time to time. So if you do have a play, you might see me running around. I threw in a bit of a nod to Star Wars, to the recent Mandalorian stuff with the Praetorian Guards in there. I couldn't help but adding a red armored Federation trooper with a nice flowing cloak, which I tend to use myself. So watch out for me running the halls of the ships in this cool red outfit. And where are we going in the future? I've always had this dream of doing a different single player game based purely on Scorpio. So the Scorpio crew going off doing adventures that weren't necessarily based on anything from the show, almost like in between the adventures. Again, though, it's one of these things where I started it and I did tease some stuff on the Twitter about it. I did put some screenshots and things up on there. So, I built Xenon Base, I built Scorpio, all the crew are there, the clip guns are there, the sounds are there. It's all in place. The bit I often struggle with is I'm not a good script writer or writers of new content. I can do stuff based on existing episodes and things, okay, but I really wanted to do something clever and innovative and new, and that's where I kind of struggle. So, if you've got any ideas for how I can write cool missions, come and jump on board. I'd always welcome some help. That would be great. But yeah, so hopefully that's something I'd like to get into. I'd love to do a Scorpio-based game. Like anything, it's kind of a bit down to time as well. But if you do play the games, do reach out, do give me a shout and let me know what you're enjoying, what you're not enjoying, what you'd like to see a bit more of, or less of, or whatever. Always up for having that conversation. If you yourself have got a bit of an idea for a Blake 7 game you'd love to do, but you've got no idea how to do it, well, give me a shout. Let's see what we could do together. I'd love to pass the Blake 7 gaming torch on to someone else so I can sit back and retire and just be a player myself rather than a maker. That would be awesome. But for now, I'm going to keep doing it. If you're going to keep on playing it, just like the podcast, if you're going to listen to it, I'll carry on doing it. So I hope that was in some way helpful, useful, or interesting. But yeah, so Blake 7 Gaming is going to continue. Do check out our free games. There are links in the description below. I hope you enjoy them. They are free to play. All you have to do is download the Roblox app, which doesn't cost you anything. You can play them on, like I say, any mobile device, Android or Apple, iPads, tablets, Xboxes, PC, of course, as well. Thanks for listening. Take care. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.